Hey everybody, it's Galmadex and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we have another Strixhaven Premier Draft for you all, and a very solid rare to open up. All of the Dean cards are quite good, and Shale, Dean of Radiance, and Embrose, Dean of Shadow are one of the better ones in my opinion. Both halves of this card are pretty powerful, so you don't even need to be Silver Quill for this to be good. You could be an aggressive red-white Lorehold deck, or just a solid green-black Witherbloom deck and use either halves of this card really well. So Shale, Dean of Radiance, and Embrose, Dean of Shadow, a really nice first pick because it leaves you very open with two separate really powerful cards off of your one pick. So happy to scoop that up to get this draft started. Now we have Umbral Juke as a nice instant speed removal spell. Against some strategies, it's not super great in this format. A lot of decks will have a good amount of creatures, but against the slower decks, the more Quandrixy, Prismari kind of decks that are just going to have like one big old 4/4 out later, this can destroy something good with the sack effect. And worst case scenario, it's an instant speed little flying token, so I do think Umbral Juke's pretty good. Agonizing Remorse is also a pretty good removal spell. Look through their hand and grab their scariest card and just exile it. So that's pretty good at stopping anything scary. There are always going to be some pretty powerful spells in most decks. There's the Mystical Archives in the set, of course, like Agonizing Remorses. That's just a collection of powerful instants and sorceries that are nice to get rid of. Or just a big old like 5/5 like Witherbloom Pledge Mage. So Agonizing Remorse is pretty solid. I think I do like the black cards a lot, although I do like Combat Professor a ton too. This is so good in aggressive decks, and Shale, Dean of Radiance is also really good in aggressive decks. You want to play this on turn 2 ideally and make all of your later creatures bigger. Yeah, I think the auto picker's pretty fine here. We can go with Combat Professor. Combat Professor or either of those black uncommons would not be bad choices at all. Here, I don't see much to go with our aggressive start. While we can play the Deans in either Lorehold or Silverquill or Witherbloom, we'd prefer to be in Silverquill if we can, and there's really just nothing for us for Silverquill. I don't think the white or black cards in this pack are very good. Cram Session's fine if you're a slower deck with a lot of lessons. Right now we don't really have any, but Cram Session isn't really the kind of card I'd play in a really aggressive Silverquill deck, so not really going to combo well if we do end up in that white-black build. Dueling Coach as well. I mean, it's a 4-mana 3/3 by itself because it can put the counter on itself, but then you have to spend 5 mana and tap it to start doing more, so this is a pretty slow card, not really what Silverquill's doing generally. Like Stonerise Spirit's pretty filler. I don't think any of the cards in our colors are that good. If we were taking something for a Witherbloom deck, Cram Session might be fine, because Witherbloom can be slower, or Zamone is probably the best card here for a Quandrix strategy, but it would involve just getting rid of our first 2 picks here. But if that's where we see the strongest cards getting passed to us, that could be where we end up going here. So Cultivate is really good, because I think that Quandrix and Prismari and Witherbloom are all like really good to splash together. So Cultivate, mainly for Quandrix, but it lets you splash Witherbloom or Prismari pretty well. So it's for those green-blue strategies like the strategy we'd be playing Zamone in. And it helps us now splash in, red cards like Prismari cards or black cards like Witherbloom cards. So I do like Cultivate a lot. Environmental Sciences is also really good, and you do want to have this in pretty much any deck. That way every learn card that you have can also double as a land when you need it. This is something you could take this early just because you know you're going to play it whatever deck you end up in, so that's a choice too. But I do like the idea of jumping in on this Cultivate after taking that Zamone here, maybe jumping onto the Quandrix plan. And we could splash in an Embrose here, be Quandrix and Witherbloom, just not playing the Combat Professor we've taken. Now we have Kelpie Guide, which is a great ramp card for these Quandrix decks, being able to untap a permanent you control, and once you hit your 8 lands, this can start tapping down your opponent's biggest threat every turn. So I think Kelpie Guide's quite good. Professor of Symbology is also really good for an aggressive white deck, but I don't think we're going to end up like a Bant here, like white-green with some green ramp and white aggro. That seems like a really weird place to be. We don't have any lessons yet to go with the Professor, but Professor is very, very good, I would say. Quite a solid card there. I'm just going to take Kelpie Guide, though. See if we can't hop in on Quandrix. And we've got some more options here. We have a Human Wizard and a Beast. So we only have one card that combos with Mentor's Guidance right now if we end up in Quandrix, but it's not too hard to get these sorts of creature types. There just happen to be a lot of Clerics, Druids, Shamans, Warlocks, and Wizards in this set. As you can see, there's a Troll Warlock in this pack. The green-blue kind of apprentice, I forget what it's called. The Pledge Mage, Quandrix Pledge Mage, is a shaman, so if you get any of those, it combos really well with this card. And just scry 2, draw 2 is so good if you can get that going out for this. So I'm going to take Mentor's Guidance here, but Arcane Subtraction is also good, being a cheap learn card. But I'm going to go for the Mentor's Guidance, see if we can't get the good creatures to go with that. Wow, now we have a Burying Books, a great removal spell, a Fractal Summoning, a great late game lesson, or a Cram Session, which would go into this deck because we're going to be a Quandrix ramp deck. We're going to be slower here, so Cram Session gives us extra life for some breathing room against aggressive strategies and grabs whatever lesson we need. So Cram Session would be good in this kind of deck, but so would Fractal Summoning, so would Burying Books. So many options here, all of them solid. We have Cultivate and Zamone ramping us, and Kelpie Guide ramping us, nothing to ramp into yet, so I do like Fractal Summoning, so we know we always have something to ramp into. Yeah, we play any card with Learn, and we know we're getting a big old X mana XX, so that seems pretty important to have, so we know that we're ramping into something every game. So we have Strategic Planning, look at the top 3, put 1 into your hand, the rest into your graveyard, kind of a weak draw spell, not super exciting, and Springmane Servant, kind of a weak early game blocker, 3 mana 3/2, so it trades down into 2 power creatures that people would usually play for only 2 mana, although it does gain life when it comes into play, so it can combo with some Witherbloom cards that care about life gain. I think I'm just going to take Elemental Masterpiece. This is not hard to splash in Quandrix because you have cards like Cultivate that's just like grab my 1 mountain, so now I can Elemental Masterpiece turn 7. Seems like a solid card to be ramping into. Could throw that in here, potentially. And I'll take an Honor Troll here. 3 mana for a 2/3 Vigilance is definitely more exciting than 3 mana for a 3/2. So even if we aren't doing much with the gain life thing, this could be solid in here. Spined Karok might actually be better because it's just a little bit of a better blocker. We don't really need to be like vigilantly attacking with the Honor Troll. I don't think I'll be splashing in an Enthusiastic Study, although if I end up in Prismari, that could be okay. Yeah, I'll actually take the Spined Karok here. And I'll definitely take an Arcane Subtraction here. Nice, cheap learn spell that also staves off some damage from your opponent. So we can use this to grab our Fractal for the late game and stop some damage in the early game. Solve the Equation can be fun in the right deck. It was super fun in my 1 Cody deck I've drafted so far. But I don't know if this is going to be a deck that needs it, because that's just going to like grab a Cultivate or something right now. I guess I could grab an Elemental Masterpiece. There's reasons to play it, and Servant, again, is not that exciting. We could try it out here. I'm actually going to take a Witherbloom Campus over a Spined Karok, because these campuses are really nice to have if we do end up splashing like 1 big black card. 1 large Witherbloom card there. That was kind of a weird choice of words, but like how we're splashing in 1 big red card here, if we have the Prismari Campus, that would help with that, so this will help with any Witherbloom splashes. Happy to take a Containment Breach here, but Cogwork Archivist is also fine. Fine card to ramp into. Yeah, I think I'd rather have the Naturalize that we can grab off of our Learn spells, and a last pick Arcane Subtraction. Don't mind if I do. Not last, but second to last. All right, and we get rewarded by the gods of RNG today. We get a Dragon's Guard Elite as our rare impact to a 2 mana 2/2 that gets a +1/+1 counter whenever we cast an instant or sorcery. So this just rewards us for what we already want to do in Quandrix. We can play this on turn 2, and now all of a sudden when we're doing what we were already going to do, which is play Cultivate turn 3 and then like Growth Spiral turn 4 or something like that, this is just going to keep getting bigger. So Dragon's Guard Elite is a really, really solid rare here, and super good once you've ramped out and you have nothing else to do. Just start spending 6 mana a turn and making this bigger and bigger. And Tempted by the Auric, absolutely rewarded out of pack 2 here. Another very good rare. This is a 4 mana sorcery to gain control of a creature or planeswalker that your opponent controls with mana value 3 or less. Now, normally, this would just be pretty good because you would steal like their Kelpie Guide sized creature or their Brackish Trudge or something like that, and then trade their own creature into another one of theirs. That's like the normal Magical Christmas Land. But in this set, it's even better because you have the cards like Elemental Summoning that like everybody's running. This can almost always just take like a 4/4, or even in the right matchup against Fractals, take a big old 7/7 Fractal, because those have mana value 0. So Tempted by the Auric, very good in this set, and I'm happy to scoop it up. Now we could take a Serpentine Curve if we end up ramping up with a bunch of instants and sorceries. This can be a pretty big creature in the late game, and worst case scenario, we can just play it on turn 4 as a just 1/1 or 2/2. I don't like Demogoth Titan unless you have a million pest tokens, and we definitely don't in this deck. Could take Introduction to Prophecy for more options of what lessons to grab, because currently we have Fractal Summoning and Containment Breach, and Containment Breach is very narrow. We can always grab Fractal Summoning, but Containment Breach is so narrow that just grabbing something that's always a little bit of value like Introduction to Prophecy could be solid here, because we do already have 2 Learn cards, double Arcane Subtraction. I can see the Introduction to Prophecy. I could see the Serpentine Curve. I'm just going to go with the Introduction to Prophecy here, I think. Divide by Zero is a card I'm super happy to take, especially since I just took another decent lesson. Divide by Zero being a 3-mana good tempo play, slows down your opponent, puts their thing back into their hand, spell or permanent. You get to hold it off for a turn, and you get to learn. Unfortunately, this cannot bounce tokens. That is the only downside, but even then, it's really good. So I'm happy to take that. Eureka Moment is perfect. Exactly what we want in this deck. 4 mana, draw 2 cards, and put a land from our hand into play. Ramps you up, draws you cards, just exactly what Quandrix wants to do. Biomathematician's solid as well, but Eureka Moment is just kind of perfection for most Quandrix decks. See what we get out of the rest of this pack. We are on pick 5, so pick 6 now. Another Containment Breach, so maybe didn't have to take that one so highly. Yeah, because there's nothing else in this pack I'm really looking for. I guess I could take another creature, just another filler creature, so I don't have like a 0 creature deck here. We already have the 1 Containment Breach. I highly doubt I'll ever play a game where I need to grab 2 artifact enchantment removal spells in one game. So yeah, I'll take the Amplimancer here. I could also take Biblioplex Assistant, which can put an instant or sorcery from your grave on top of your library. Could be like really good with Tempted by the Auric, but a lot of our instants and sorceries right now are kind of filler, like Cultivate. Yeah, I'll try out the Biblioplex Assistant. It does seem like a really fun time if we get that after we've cast Tempted by the Auric. Certainly a pretty infuriating time for our opponent, though. Ooh, another Kelpie guy. Don't mind if I do. Great ramp spell here. Easily the pick out of this pack. I prefer Negate over Reject here. Just stuff that can counter non-creatures, mainly instants and sorceries, is pretty big in this format because you have all the summonings that you can counter, and more importantly, the really big Prismari spells are very important to counter if you are looking for counter spells. So actually, Whirlwind Denial actually is a card I didn't give a lot of credit to earlier because I don't usually like playing counter spells, but the fact that that can counter creatures or instants or sorceries is pretty good. Oh wow, this is incredible here, pick 8. So many options. Teachings of the Archaics is a real good lesson. If your opponent has more cards in hand, you get to draw 2 off of this, so you just get a Divination as your lesson. Or if your opponent has 4 more cards in hand than you draw 3. That's like super good. Snow Day's great. 6 mana, tap 2 things, draw 2, discard a card. Frost Trickster's great in the early game. I'm actually going to roll with a Snow Day here. I feel like that is the kind of card I'll see less often than the other ones, and they're all pretty good there. And I don't have a ton I'm ramping into now. Now at least I can do a Snow Day, get a nice big value play that also slows my opponent down. Grab another Elemental Masterpiece here. I think I'm definitely throwing in like a couple mountains in here to grab off Cultivate. And if we can get a Prismari Campus, that'll be great. Scurrid Colony is one of the best common creatures for these Quandrix decks. It's definitely a lot better than the other one that we've been seeing. The 2 mana 2/2 that can double its power and toughness till end of turn. This one's just really good because it's got reach, so it can block flyers like Inkling tokens. And when you hit the late game, when you've ramped out, it turns into a 4/4. So Scurrid Colony, pretty great. And we did wheel the Serpentine Curve, so we could try that out here. Definitely something we'll take a look at during deck building, see how many creatures and non-creatures we have. I don't like Servant or Befuddler that much, but I think I'll take Befuddler first, because we're not Witherbloom. If we were Witherbloom, then there's like some value off the life gain. There's really not much in Quandrix. This is going to be a pretty fun deck. I think we're doing pretty good here on ramp. We have double Kelpie Guide, and we have Cultivate, and we have a Eureka Moment, and then we're just ramping into a couple Elemental Masterpieces and a Fractal Summoning. Biomathematician wheeled all the way. I'm pretty sure I'm in the right colors. It's a 3 mana for a 2/2 and a 1/1, so it gives you those good early game blockers. All 3 of these cards are cards I'd be happy to play in here. Cogwork Archivist being a nice late game play that can win if you're trying to mill your opponent out, and the 2 mana 1/3 also pretty good. I'll take a second Containment Breach just in case. I think it's highly unlikely that it gets super used here, but I'm going to take it there. So the Biblioplex doesn't do anything unless you have 7 cards in hand or 0 cards in hand. I don't think either of those are incredibly likely for this deck, because we do have some good draw, but we're still going to be dumping out a bunch of lands off of like Cultivate and Eureka Moment type stuff. So I think we'll often have like 4 or 5 cards in hand the vast majority of the time. I think it's going to be rare that we end up with just 0 until the very late game. And Biblioplex does tap for a colorless, so it makes your mana a little bit worse. But in the right deck, this can be like a pretty good way to get some draw value out of your land in the late game. I think I'm just going to take a Burying Book. So we've only seen like 1 in the whole draft, and it got scooped up really quick, and this is the kind of card we definitely want. It can slow any creature down by throwing it back into their library, and if they're playing any of the summoning cards that are just creature tokens, this is super good, because it just completely destroys it for cheap. So Environmental Sciences, that would be our first Environmental Sciences, which is pretty good for the Elemental Masterpiece. Grab our 1 red source. Quandrix Pledge Mage, however, is pretty good, and we do need more creatures to go with Mentor's Guidance. Right now, Mentor's Guidance isn't doing a lot of work, is it? We have 1 Druid and 3 Wizards. We have 4 creatures that work with Mentor's Guidance. I think we have to take a Quandrix Pledge Mage here, unfortunately, to go with that, but there's also Eureka Moments. I guess we could end up just cutting Mentor's Guidance. And Environmental Sciences, Quandrix Pledge Mage, Eureka Moment, all really big cards here. We're just going to take Eureka Moment. We'll probably end up cutting Mentor's Guidance, unfortunately. Now we get another Eureka Moment. It's so just beautifully perfect for Quandrix. It's so hard to pass up for almost anything. We have a Witherbloom Pledge Mage, though, a nice 5/5 that gains us some life, or a Negate. Mortality Spear is also an option. We do have 1 Witherbloom Campus, and we've got Cultivate to maybe grab a Swamp instead, but I don't want to go too crazy on splashing. I really only want to splash 1 color here. Grab another Eureka Moment. Ooh, that's another reward for us. We get the Quandrix Deans. So, Imbraham, Dean of Theories, a 4 mana 3/3 flyer. Wow, with a really good draw effect. Yeah, Imbraham's going to get played a lot here for 4 mana. Absolutely, get in this deck. And even Kian. These are some really complex effects, so I'm going to have to reread these, but they both seem like really good halves to the cards. We'll read them whenever we draw them. They're both good. Some nice rares to throw in here. And Leyline Invocation is going to be the pick for me here. Overgrown Arch would be solid. Like, it would definitely be solid in here. A nice 0/4 that sits there gaining us life and then learns when we don't need it anymore. That's really solid, even for this kind of just ramp deck rather than a Witherbloom deck. But we want more cards to ramp into. We have 3 Eureka Moments now. Cultivate, double Kelpie Guide. We want the big plays. We want more of them than just the double Masterpiece. Leyline Invocation is like perfect because it's so easy to cast, and it's really good when you're ramping lands out. So, real happy to take a Leyline Invocation. We could take another Fractal Summoning or an Emergent Sequence. I think I'll take an Emergent Sequence here. It would be my second card that can grab any basic to go with the Cultivate, so that's pretty important to get that red source. So I do like Emergent Sequence. It also ramps up the mana, of course, for like Leyline Invocation, so that's pretty good. Devouring Tendrils, because we really don't have removal, although there's another Leyline Invocation. We have Divide by 0 to slow things down. That's about it for removal. I think we kind of have to take Devouring Tendrils here. But another Leyline Invocation would be solid in this deck. Don't have enough creatures that I think that Golden Ratio is ever going off and drawing a lot of cards. Don't have enough creatures to really be using pump spells too crazily. So it's between Biomathematician and Scurrid Colony. Since we do have one Biomathematician making fractals and Leyline Invocation, I think we have some good combos with Biomathematician to take it here, but definitely an argument for Scurrid Colony. I think we have better like 3 mana cards than 2 mana cards right now, so we're cutting a worse card by cutting a 2-drop out than cutting a 3-drop. So that would be the biggest reason for taking that 2 mana card here. Well, now we could just wheel the Biblioplex and try it out anyway. It's that or Arcane Subtraction, and I don't feel like I have enough lessons to want a third. 2 Containment, 1 Introduction Prophecy, and a Fractal Summoning. Yeah, I don't really need a ton of Learn in this deck. Could try an Increasing Vengeance, but I'm probably just rare drafting this for my collection, because I don't really want to play a Prismari Pledge Mage, and we don't have any white, so we don't need a Lower Hold Campus. We might end up playing this Witherbloom Campus just to scry, but would have been really good if it was just a Prismari Campus here. Wonder if I ever passed up on one. Probably. Could play a Cogwork Archivist. It's a card I like. Could play a Curate. That one I don't particularly like. It's pretty filler, but just a little draw spell. Could be good if we try to do the Serpentine Curve thing and just have a million non-creatures. We did end up with another wizard for the Mentor's Guidance, so we'll have to look at our counts for that again. But I could definitely see a build where we cut more creatures and lean heavily into Serpentine Curve, or... Ooh, we are going to get these Arcane Subtractions super late, so I guess we get another one. Or a build where we cut the Serpentine Curve and play more creatures and try to lean into the Mentor's Guidance. All right. So we definitely did not end up where it looked like we would here. Ended up with Quandrix with a little red splash after taking those good Silver Quill rares, but moving into Quandrix gave us some good Quandrix rares instead, so it all worked out in the end. 9 cuts to make. How many cards do we have that work with Mentor's Guidance? We have 2 Druids. And we have 4 Wizards, so we only have 6. That seems a little too low to me. And I also don't really want to play Burrog Befuddler. Yeah, I'm going to cut those 3, and then we still have 6 cards to cut. With the Arcane Subtractions, learning for another lesson, that's going to put more instant sorceries in our graves, because every Arcane Subtraction we cast, we're going to play an Arcane Subtraction and then also play a lesson. Although I guess some of our lessons are pretty expensive. We don't have a lot of lessons either. Yeah, so we can grab and cast Introduction to Prophecy pretty consistently, but then we have Containment Breach, which is only for specific situations, and Fractal Summoning that we want a million mana to cast. So actually not so sure how the Arcane Subtractions are looking. Divide by Zero, definitely a much better learn card. Got a couple Arcane Subtractions, but we might leave 1 in here. Yeah, I think we still want 2 learn cards, because we definitely want to hit our Fractal Summoning. That's about the only lesson that we really want all the time. Solve the Equation. We do have a variety of different sorts of effects out of our instants and sorceries, so it probably is good in here. Because the downside of this card is that you do have to take some time off to do it. And it only gets instants or sorceries, so it only hits specific card types. But when your deck has a lot of instants and sorceries that create creatures, it's like when we need a creature, we can grab a Leyline Invocation or an Elemental Masterpiece. This is, of course, if we're doing this in the late game, but most of the time we will be doing this in the late game, since it is a card that requires us taking time off. If we need a removal spell, we can grab Burying the Books, Tempted by the Auric, or Devouring Tendrils. Yeah, I think this is fine. It's not great, though. Good with the Serpentine Curve, because then we can just like search that up anytime in the late game that we draw that card. Curate's good with the Serpentine Curve as well. 4 more cuts. I really don't think I want to cut any of these creatures. I think every creature that I have left in here is pretty good. Maybe the Cogwork Archivist, because we do have a lot of other late game stuff going. As for now, we have Leyline Invocation, Elemental Masterpiece, and Snow Day all being pretty big effects in the late game, and we have the Fractal Summoning that we're learning for, and Biblioplex to be drawing cards when we run out of things to do. I guess Cogwork Archivist makes sure we don't mill ourselves, which could be a concern. Yeah, that is a thing. Putting our cards in our graveyard back on bottom of our library does seem like actual gas in this deck. We have 17 instants and sorceries to do the Serpentine Curve thing. We can probably cut more and still justify the Serpentine Curve. So I guess we can go ahead and get rid of the Curate then. And I guess to solve the equation. And then 2 more cards to cut. Biblioplexus system does seem like a real good late game, just redo a Masterpiece or a Leyline Invocation. Am I even just cutting another Arcane Subtraction here? And then my only learn card is Divide by 0? I don't think I am. But I just don't know what else I'm putting in. I guess Devouring Tendrils doesn't kill anything early on, but when we hit the late game, it does kill things because we got those big creatures. Just gonna cut these artifact creatures. Like, I like these creatures as just good defensive plays in the early game, the Biomathematicians. And the Scourge Colony, I guess they are like our weakest cards. Like, we could go like double Biomathematician, goodbye Scourge Colony, and run a really low creature count, but that just seems really a little sketch to me. If I do end up playing against an aggressive deck like the one that I had yesterday, I would really like to be able to kind of hold down the fort. And Scourge Colony is big in the late game. I think we'll run it like this and see how things go here. Because we have a Biblioplex, I'm a little less high on the Witherbloom campus. Like, I might just rather have a forest here. We do want a lot of blue sources because that Tempted by the Auric's going to be pretty hard to hit. Yeah, we got some difficult mana costs. We need triple blue for Tempted by the Auric. We need double blue for Snow Day. We always want green mana because we have Emergent Sequence and Cultivate. We might not even want the Biblioplex just because it makes the mana more difficult. Cut the Biblioplex for another forest. That seems worth it. Even cut another mountain because our only red cards are 7 mana, so we don't need the mountain until very late game. Play another island because that Tempted by the Auric's so hard to hit. And also so powerful. Yeah, change the mana around a bit there. I think this is the final build I'll be going for with this Quandrix ramp deck. We'll see how it plays out. Definitely was an interesting draft. We started with a couple good like Silver Quill Rares and just kind of felt like we got kicked out of it a little bit. Not a couple good Silver Quill Rares. Technically one, the modal card. So, you know, it's 2 rares on one, but technically just the one card. All right. Well, this is a curve. We got the Scourge Colony turn 2. We might have Kian turn 3. I don't know if that's good. Exile the top card of your library. If it's a land, draw it. Otherwise, put a study counter on it. For 5 mana, you create a fractal that gets bigger for each study counter thing you have. Just a nice, like, quick draw spell sort of thing. Yeah, I could see just curving out into that could be worth it, but the 4 mana version does seem so much better. Potentially. Exile the top X, put a study counter on each of them. You may play a card you own and exile with a study counter on it. Oh, put one with a study counter on it into your hand. Really good draw effect. Both of these are very slow. Kian and Abraham. Just kind of sit there drawing cards. Ooh, get an emergent sequence here. Grab a red source, I guess. Could grab another blue so I know I can cast Abraham. Yeah, curving into Abraham a turn early seems cool. Like if I had the choice between the two rather than just having to play Kian because she's cheaper, I could just play Abraham because they have all 4 mana. He does seem better because we are drawing, or I assume he because it's like Abraham. I should say they. They seem like they'll consistently draw us cards anyway. You know, Kian draws us whenever we're hitting lands. Abraham just always draws us by exiling. We did hit the red source here. We can drop a Kelpie Guide and a Scourge Colony. I think I like that. I don't really want to Bury-in books on either of these. They're very small, and Frost Trickster has a good ETB effect, or Enter the Battlefield effect. So I don't really want them to redo that later, so I don't like putting that back into their deck. And I don't want a Serpentine Curve yet, because it would only be a 2/2. And I have another instant in my hand, so the Serpentine Curve can definitely get much bigger as this game progresses. Expanded Anatomy is their choice of lesson off of the field trip. So they can make one of these a big old flying annoying attacker. I think I like studying. Just draw our best card out of the top 3 here. I think we're good to attack with the island. Start just attacking with all these 2/2s so we can ship these things off the board. Oh, these are all good. Probably divide by 0 here first, right? Devouring Tendrils is super good here too, though. I like Divide by 0 because then we get our Fractal Summoning ready. I think I'll take that for now. I actually don't want to attack anymore because now I want the Kelpie Guide to untap lands. I want the island to be a mana source. And the Scourge Colony, we're at 6 lands right now. We're only 2 lands away from making it a 4/4. Probably just hang out. Scourge Colony of their own. Expanded Anatomy on the Needlethorn Drake, so we'll probably just bounce that with Divide by 0. Looks like it is revealed to our opponent, so they know we have the Divide. But I still like it here because we get to grab Fractal Summoning and put another instant Sorcery Engrave for Serpentine Curve. We can make that really big. We even have Cultivate now. Yeah, I don't think we're going to use Abraham this turn then, because we have the 6 mana to do Cultivate and Divide by 0, and then we can just like attack all, which will be great. Throw the Death Toucher back into their hand. Grab that Fractal Summoning. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can tap down one of their blockers to attack with everybody. Because otherwise they can double block Scourge Colony or they can double block Abraham because the Scourge Colony does have reach. rather tap the Scourge Colony, because I'd rather kill the Frost Trickster. If it trades with my island, that does turn our Scourge Colony back into a 2/2, but as soon as we hit another land, it'll be back up. Needlethorn Drake is back. And a Spring Main Servant, gain a couple life, get a nice little 3/2 out. I'd expect no attacks. Yeah, Tempted by the Auric is pretty great. Could Tempted by the Auric and Serpentine Curve here. If I Tempted by the Auric, what am I even taking? Probably just the Death Toucher because it's annoying me. Probably rather take the better attacker. Take the Scourge Colony, tap down the Needlethorn Drake. I could hold up mana for a Bury in Books. If I don't tap something down, or if I don't tap Tempted by the Auric. Tap down Needlethorn Drake. Steal like their 3/2. They've got 4 power toughness there. Just slam in with everybody. Actually, probably worth it at this point. Just get as aggressive as we can. We can let him kill Imbraham if it means that we chip in for 10 damage here. Or 8 damage, not 10. They're going to kill our land. That makes our Scourge Colony a 2/2 now, right? Yep, so we do need to draw another land to buff that back up. But they're at 9 now. We got 4 creatures out. They got the 1. Actually do need a land for the Kelpie Guide's ability to tap things down too. Dragon's Guard Elite. I'd like to bury that. Alright, we did hit a land. That was pretty lucky. It's probably a bit aggressive setting in the island there as well. Be sure we're tapping down the Death Toucher. We know we get in for 3 in the sky. They could double block to kill Scourge Colony or 1-for-1 trade with the 3/2. If they do a double block on Scourge Colony, we can Bury in Books. Alright, any just trade like that we'll accept, and then we'll start making big things with our Serpentine Curve. I think I'd rather Serpentine Curve than Fractal Summoning. Because it's going to be just as big, and I can hold up a Bury in Books if they try to attack for some reason. Alright, they're going to scoop them up there. That was some really good stuff from the Quandrix deck there. From the Scourge Colonies were great. Tempted by the Auric, obviously insane. And Imbraham, Dean of Theory. Just studying for a lot of cards. So, solid start here. 1-0 heading into the next round. I ran out of water. It's getting late into the recording session. This is my like 3rd draft of the session. I ran out of beverage. My throat is ready to give up. Well, this is a great hand. Dragon's Guard Elite into either Biomathematician or Kian. Probably just play Biomathematician so I could be playing Imbraham again. I want to just call this Imbiamba. Like Imbiamba Jones. That would be pretty nice. Dragon's Guard Elite with nothing to Magecraft it. That's right. It's here to draw removal, and it did. It drew out a Lash of Malice, so that's fine. We have double Biomathematician here, so these are going to make a couple 2/2s, which is cool. 1/1 for now, but next turn, if I play another Biomathematician, just some 2/2s. Just Lash of Malice the deck here. Lash the Fractal. Do it. Would I rather Biomathematician, Imbraham, or Eureka Moment? I would rather draw as much removal as I can out of my opponent, so I think I just want a Biomathematician again. Have 3 2/2s out, so we could just see if they have 5 Lash of Malice. Would be the dream. I guess it's 2 2/2s and a 1/1. Would have been 3 2/2s and a 1/1, but they killed one of ours. Crushing disappointment. Draw a couple cards, and everybody loses some life. Everyone's disappointing today. Professor of Zoomancy, a 4/3 that spits out a 1/1 pest. Well, that's going to hold off all of our fun. 1 mana away from Snow Day, so I don't need to Eureka Moment to ramp into it. If I play either of these Deans, I'm pretty sure they're just going to get blown up by some sort of removal. But I gotta draw out the removal at some point. I'll just cast Abraham. And then next turn we'll probably Snow Day down a couple creatures so we can get a good attack in. And try to win with some value, drawing a couple cards off Snow Day, then drawing a couple cards off Eureka Moment. And if Abraham doesn't die, Abraham can draw a lot of cards. Very nice at studying. They got the Theros Owl, that's pretty cute. Devouring Tendrils, they will just kill that right away. R.I.P. My Strix friend. My bird wizard. Send in the professor. I was gonna say, I'll make a double block there, and then if they have a trick, they can go for it. Go for the Snow Day so we can get a couple attacks in here. Draw a couple cards, discard a card. Hopefully we draw land. Oh. Now I don't want to discard that land, but I almost 100% should over any of these other cards. If I don't discard the island, I know I can Tempted by the Auric, but right now the only thing I can steal is a pest token anyway, so I guess we'll get rid of the island. We have plays without casting Tempted by the Auric. We have plans. We can Leyline Invocation and Eureka Moment. And those will be pretty good. Oh, third Lash of Malice. They're 2 away from us assembling Exodia. Blood Researcher. Lash of Malice is a good card. I'm just trying to be a little jokey, adding a little humor. Every time we get late into the recording sessions, that's where I start to lose my mind, and then these things just pop out. Blood Researcher. I can just bounce that back to their hand whenever it gets too big, so for now I can just Leyline Invocation, and I'm pretty happy with that. Like, a 2/2 Menace is not bad. We don't have to worry about this till they start putting a bunch of counters on it. I could also just steal it with Tempted by the Auric when it gets big. That's probably pretty fun. I do have enough mana to Eureka Moment and Divide by 0 if I draw any basic land off Eureka Moment, but that's a bit risky. It's not like a guaranteed play, whereas Leyline Invocation is just a straight up guaranteed 6/6. Which is solid on this board. What foul tricks have you here? Infuse with Vitality to give Death Touch and bring it back from the grave. If they use that on Professor of Zoomancy, that's going to be really sad, because then they gain life, get another pest token, so Blood Researcher gets like super big. If they use it on like Blood Researcher to kill my 1/1 and my 6/6, I don't really care. So I think that's the best play if they have Infused with Vitality. Hey, got him. I figured out the puzzle. Another Eureka Moment. Now we are trying to Eureka Moment, Divide by 0. Do I do it just during my turn in case I draw 2 lands? Probably. I tap a red because my only red card costs 1,000,000 mana, so we're not going to cast that if we draw it here. I did draw 2 lands, so just put them both out, and now I can Eureka Moment during their turn, or I can Divide by 0. I am kind of in a world of hurt now, though. But I do have my 3rd island, so I can steal the Blood Researcher. Springmane Servant, they gain a life, Blood Researcher gets bigger. All their creatures have Enter the Battlefield effects too, so Divide by 0 isn't even like a good bounce here. I could divide my own Biomathematician to get more blockers. actually seems like the best divide I can do, because if I divide their Professor, they have 4 mana up anyway, so they're just going to play it again and get another Pest token. Get a Fractal Summoning here. They don't have an instant, or an enchantment or artifact. And Introduction to Prophecy is pretty weak right now. Serpentine Curve is a pretty sweet draw. We can cast this, and then we have 4 mana up, which isn't enough to Serpentine Curve because I don't have another blue. So I can't really Tempted by the Auric right now. I could Serpentine Curve and Biomathematician. That's pretty good. It's pretty big. It's like as many blockers as I could make here. Rise of Exodus. Get rid of the 6/6 and a card from my grave. Pretty devastating here, because now I'm down to just the 2 creatures. I can kill that, steal Blood Researcher. They've got 1 creature left, but I take 7 by doing this, which is bad. Their 1 creature left is going to be a flyer, though. Brutal. But I think this is like my best option. Clear out the board as much as I possibly can. Elemental Masterpiece, that's a couple 4/4s. That's a couple 4/4s, but if I play that, I die to Menace. So I have to play Tempted by the Auric and Fractal Summoning for a 2/2. And then I'm just really hoping that I don't die to that Inkling Summoning. I have to find an answer to that, too. Probably dying to the Inkling Summoning. Oh my god. Alright, well, we just got it absolutely handed it to us by the massive stack of removal our opponent drafted there. We just could not keep anything on our board to block. So we're going to get slapped by some big old bear professors. So we'll head into round 3 here, 1-1. Do really need a green source for this hand. Otherwise, I'm sitting here doing nothing until like turn 6. I think I'm going to have to mulligan that. And this is super cute. And I'm even going to get rid of a land here, because if I don't hit my 4th mana by turn 3, I can just cast Kian and use her ability to try to draw more lands. Guiding Voice. +1/+1 counter on that Unwilling Ingredient, so it's a 2/2 Menace, and they learn for an Inkling Summoning. We are playing against an aggressive Silver Quill deck here. And I'm spooked. Three mana up now, so they can cast that Inkling Summoning if nothing else. And that is the play. Slap us for 2, get a 2/1 flyer out there. If I hold off on Kian, I can cast her next turn as a 3/3 flyer, so I can hold off the flying token. But if I hold off till next turn, I take 4 here. I also just... She's only a 2/2, so I'm still going to take 4 either way, and this has Menace. If I play her now, what do I do next turn? Try to draw land and then cast a Eureka Moment? This is just looking like a bad situation overall, but I think it's better to play a 3/3 flyer so we can at least block one of these creatures next turn. Because if we play Kian this turn and then Eureka Moment next turn, we're not blocking either. on either turn anyway. Blocking seems like the most important thing we could be doing here. Shadewing Lore hit for another big flyer. Please don't kill Imbraham, because if you do, I'm about to just get absolutely wiped out of this draft. Just so fast. Dramatic finale. Oh dear. We do have a lot of things that kill artifacts and enchantments in our sideboard, so we could blow that up if we get any learn cards. But I do have to trade into this flying token now, or take 5. And if I trade into the flying token, they get a +1/+1 counter on the other flyer. This is a real curve here. I don't think that we take this trade, because by holding Imbraham, we get to hold off the Shadewing Laureate. I guess we probably don't. They probably attack in anyway, and then just make an Inkling out of it. We are stuck between a rock and a hard place here. This is... oh, the access tunnel as well that we had in our last aggressive Lorehold deck. Yeah, now we just can't block something every turn. There's just no way to stabilize against the access tunnel here. Even if we make a million blockers, we're dead in 3 turns. Yeah, that's just going to close this one out real fast. That was a phenomenal start from the Silver Quill aggro deck there from our opponent. Really nice stuff. I think that puts us to 1-2, but it might even be 1-3. All right, 1-2. I would hate to see this deck go 1-3. I think that the pivot worked out overall. We ended up in a better deck than we would have had otherwise. Although it did seem like Silver Quill and Quandrix were decently open in our draft pod. Either way we ended up going, because we were seeing some decently late like Rise of Ecstasies and stuff. Alright. I'll definitely keep this. We have Arcane Subtraction to slow down the fast decks, same with Divide by Zero, and we have Kelpie Guide ramping us up to hit our late game stuff. Ooh, and we draw into Zimone. Fantastic draw. Gives us something to just drop out on turn 2. Playing against Lorehold here, a Lorehold campus and a mountain from our opponent. Play the land, and I think just past turn, so I'm ready to dump out another land here, or Arcane Subtraction or Divide by Zero. Pilgrim of the Ages, could just slow them down here. Toss that back in their hand. What do I do next turn if I do that? I just grab a Fractal Summoning, so I'm not going to really do anything next turn. It doesn't seem necessary here. Play a land. Arcane Subtraction. Again, the only thing I would be getting would be a Fractal Summoning, so I'm not going to cast that anytime soon anyway. Now I have the mana to play a Kelpie Guide and hold up Arcane Subtraction. I would also have the mana to just not play any of those and hold up Zimone's ability, which would be fine too. But I'm 1 mana away from Snow Day, so if I play Kelpie Guide, I get to Snow Day this next turn, which is cool. We'll kill the Pilgrim so they can bring it back later if they want, but not until they have 6 mana, and they have to spend all 6 to do that, so this seems fine to me. We do have 6 mana for Snow Day now, so I could cast that. I could also Fractal Summoning for a 4/4. Can't attack into the Fuming Effigy. I think I just hold for a Snow Day here. Strixhaven Stadium. So if they get 10 point counters on this, they win. After they hit me with a creature. They get a point counter every time they tap. Every time they get hit, they lose a point counter. So basically, if this gets 10 counters on it, as soon as they hit me with a creature, they win. But it's not super likely to happen. It's going to take a long time to do that. And I've got some pretty good defensive stuff to like slow that kind of thing down. Going to combat, so we'll just tap down the creatures, get our Snow Day value, draw a couple cards, and discard a card. Didn't draw into a land to discard off of the Snow Day, so we're going to have to discard something real. Maybe the Eureka moment here. Fractal Summoning is only a 4/4 right now, so it's not great. Although it's our only creature left here. Yeah, I'll get rid of the Eureka moment. Another Kelpie Guide. We can play a Kelpie Guide and hold up a Divide by 0. Or I could just Fractal Summoning for 5 if I tap Kelpie Guide. Let's go 5/5. Five should be bigger than most of the things Lorehold can make. Their biggest stuff I remember is like Fuming Effigy's a 4/3. Their 6 mana Spirit is a 4/2 flyer. Yeah, a bunch of pretty small stuff for the cost, but they can like do graveyards synergies with them. Do draw into a Cultivate here, so we can Cultivate and hold up Zamone's ability, which will be really good because we're going to hit 2 more lands here, so that seems like just an easy play. Yeah, so we have 8 lands, so Kelpie Guide is active to be able to tap things down, and Zamone's active to draw 2 cards a turn. Yeah, seems great. I tap the 4/3. We can let him hit us for 2 in the sky here. Just go down to 17 there. I don't really want to bounce that because it does have the good enter the battlefield effect. They don't have any other creatures in their grave yet, but that would make any chump blocks like super fine for them. I like holding on to our instant speed bounce spells for when they try to do a block to kill our 5/5, so we can try to save it pretty well. So we'll just draw 2. Biomathematician, Serpentine Curve, some big stuff. Elemental Masterpiece as well, giving us a couple 4/4s here. Let's send in the 5/5, see what kind of tricks we can get going here, if any. If they just do a single block, that's fine. Then we'll just cast our Elemental Masterpiece post-combat. And because of that, I think we're going to start tapping down the flyer. Although Stonerise Spirit can make any of them flyers once they have more cards in the grave, but they don't have anything in their graveyard right now, just the Pilgrim. They're not going to exile the Pilgrim to make something else fly, I think. Yeah, I think we just tap down the flyer. The bigger flyer. This Strixhaven Stadium is actually mildly scary with these small aggressive creatures, or small evasive creatures that wouldn't really be doing much to me if it weren't for the stadium, but like with the stadium they only got to get 10 counters and then it's over. Like that's kind of scary. I'll be completely honest on that front. But we can always learn for the artifact removal anytime with our Divide by 0. Anytime that would kill us, so we don't have to be that scared. We have 9 mana. kind of like Serpentine Curve into Biomathematician. That seems pretty big. I also like just attacking with everybody first because I'm going to play plenty more blockers here. Send in the big team with some instants to potentially blow our opponent out. Alright, so we can bounce one of these to just kill the other one. I think I'd rather bounce the Pilgrim because of the fact that Fuming Effigy damages us every time. But I guess it does cost 6 mana to bring that back, so it's probably better to bounce the Grinning Ignis. Grab a Containment Breach to use on Strixhaven Stadium when we need to, but we're probably not casting it this turn. Now we can Serpentine Curve and then Biomathematician as well if I take 3 in the sky. Yeah, I can take some flying damage here. Yeah, they're just going to scoop them up. I was going to untap Kelpie Guide, play Biomathematician there just to get my board even wider and more aggressive for the crackbacks. But there was the concession from our opponent. 2 and 2. They may have been all in on the Strixhaven Stadium, just wanted to get at least one win with that out of the draft. Sometimes I will draft in that way, where it's like the whole goal is just to do something silly. And yeah, maybe they saw the Containment Breach and they were just like, oh, I just wanted to do the Strixhaven Stadium thing. Why can't I have nice things? Could have won the Quidditch match. Alright, this hand is way better. So happy to see this. I'm just not really looking to keep any hands that don't have green in this deck. This hand's just perfect. Just draw all 3 colors and have Cultivate Eureka Moment to get this Scourge Colony big quickly. Overgrown Arch from our opponent, so we're not really attacking in well. But we'll definitely be ramping up well. Should have grabbed Double Island in case I hit the Tempted by the Auric that does require triple blue. I always forget about that, how restrictive that cost is. We do have 2 more forests in hand anyway, so we don't need any more forests. Cram Session, grabbing an Expanded Anatomy. Hey, that's 3rd island. Let's Eureka Moment before I play a land, but I don't think I have any 1-mana cards in my deck anyway. But just in case I have a 1-mana green or blue card, I could do it. I'm going to play my forest first, because it is revealed from Cultivate, and then I'll play my island. Doesn't really matter, because they can't like respond in between my land plays with any weird stuff. So all green mana from our opponent so far, stuck on 1 color. 4 mana with an Overgrown Arch. They have a Reckless Amplimancer coming out. And the Bayou Groff, sacrificing the 0/4 to make a 5/4. I'll probably just steal that. And that seems like a fun card to steal, I think. If I play a Eureka Moment here, my Scourge Colony's a 4/4 though. Because I have 8 mana already, so if I play a Eureka Moment, bam, Scourge Colony's a 4/4. Yeah, I can hold off on using Tempted by the Auric, because I can also cast Eureka Moment and Imbraham in the same turn here, which is pretty good. And if I draw an island, I am just the luckiest player ever. This has been a really lucky game there, because I specifically did not get the 3rd blue mana for the Tempted by the Auric, and then drew the Tempted by the Auric, so I could have gotten punished there for that, and then I didn't. And then even after drawing the 3rd blue, I drew the 4th blue to be able to play both the Growth Spiral effect and the Tempted by the Auric in the same turn. I don't have anything to kill that, but I guess I'm fine with a trade here. Because I'm going to have more creatures coming in. We're just going to hit for 12, alright. Now I can emergent sequence. Grab a thick mountain. I can only cast one more spell though. I think I would rather just get a big attacker here than Imbraham. And I would so much rather play Imbraham than Kian that I'm just going to not play Kian this turn. I'm just going to scoop them up. They're stuck on just mono green still. And my start was pretty oppressive with the Tempted by the Auric there on their Bayou Groff. They had to 2-for-1 themselves to cast the Bayou Groff by sacrificing the 0-4, and then I just took it from them. So that was a really brutal swing. So 3-2 we are. Nice even 3-3 run at worst. Or we could rally it into maybe a 4-3. 4-3 is where I like to be, but we could even try to go to ascend to the higher levels, the 7-win runs and all that. Now this, I mean, a triple blue card with no islands in hand is a real risky keep, but as soon as we draw one island, we have 2 blue sources because of Kelpie Guide. We have Scurrid Colony and Devouring Tendrils to survive in the early game. Go with the risky keep here. We've got the green mana, and that is the most important mana for us at the start of a game. But we might get punished on this one here. For what it's worth, unironically, I do think this is probably just a keep. Because I don't know, I've just heard a lot from several pros and like limited resources and stuff. You should much more often be keeping the hands than mulliganing if you can actually cast like a couple things. The most 2-landers with a bunch of 3-drops are like super solid keeps. I guess the Tempted by the Auric does push this a little farther than that. But at least our opponent's not doing anything here, just playing some Pledge Mages to hold us off. As soon as they just like play an Igneous Inspiration or something though, we're gonna get absolutely slapped. Shock works too. Shock works too. We do get slapped for 6 here. Igneous Inspiration would have been the scariest one I could think of because they get to kill our Scurrid Colony and then learn for another instant sorcery to play next turn. So they're attacking us with those twice in a row. Here is the blue source. We can play Biomath Petition to get more blockers out. We can play Zimone, but she doesn't really do anything right now. Kian to maybe draw more lands off the top could be important. Or Kelpie Guide to untap a blue so that if we hit... Yeah, Kelpie Guide seems pretty important here, because if we hit another blue source, we can now cast Tempted by the Auric. If we don't hit another blue source, we can at least untap a land to play Eureka Moment. Try to draw out of this. Draw into some action. Pigment Storm. It's going to be bad. We do take 6 again, go down to 7. Probably just start tossing a bunch of Biomath Petitions out to stay safe here. If I play Kian and they remove Kian, we don't quite die. We just go to 1. If I play Biomath Petition, they have to kill 2 separate creatures to put us to 1. Yeah, Biomath Petition this turn, Biomath Petition next turn seems pretty good. On the defensive here. Elemental Summoning is the play, which means the Pledge Mages can attack. And they get to throw a +1/+1 counter on one because they have the Hall of Heroes. This card is so good. Just a land that dumps counters onto their stuff. I think we have to kill this Pledge Mage. We can't not block here, as much as I would like to not block so that this Biomath Petition comes out and then I have 3 2/2s and a 1/1. We just can't not block or we die because of the Hall of Oracles. So like our options are to just chump block 1, chump block 2, or kill 1. And I think we have to try to just kill 1 here. down to 3. Do have that Eureka Moment mana now. We're at 3 life. We're facing against a 4/4. If they don't play an instant or sorcery, we can just chump block with 1 Fractal with Biomathematician. We have to chump block here, because this 4/4 can attack no matter what. So I think Biomathematician's the play, because it gives us the best chump blocker, and then even if they cast an instant or sorcery, we have 2 chump blockers. The problem is, if they cast an instant or sorcery, it's likely to be removal. Looks like it's just a draw spell here, but even just the draw 4 is huge. Puts another counter on one of their creatures as well. Now we have to chump block both. Enthusiastic steady, alright. So we're just very dead this game. Regardless. That's gonna put today's Silver Quill deck at a... or Silver Quill. I wonder how many times I've accidentally called my Quandrix deck Silver Quill because I first picked a couple Silver Quill cards and then just my brain defaulted to that. That'll make today's Quandrix deck another 3/3 average run. I feel like that's been like every draft for a while now. Just kind of bottoming out with the format, narrowing it all out to just some even runs. Galazeth Prismari out of the packs. Very nice. Seems like a super fun commander to try to build around. And the final card, Hoffrey Ghostforge. Man, why do I open all the cool legendaries in the prize packs? I've never drafted a Hoffrey yet, and I do really want to, because Hoffrey seems just brutally unbeatable, and Lorehold is my favorite college flavor flea. Well, that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed the draft, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of those good things to let the YouTube algorithm know that you're interested in seeing more. And yeah, we've got some good stuff on the horizon. May 8th is the Arena Sealed Open that I will be playing. That'll be day 1 of it. If I succeed at day 1, get a 7-win run, then I will be also playing day 2. So that is the next big event coming up on the channel. But other than that, just going to be playing some more Strixhaven Limited in the meantime, off and on. And whatever new formats pop up as they pop them up. So, yeah. Thank you all very much for watching. And I will see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.